mentioned, we're going to look at the manufacturing from the completely other end of the scale. It's amazing, I think, that 10 years ago, nobody could have thought like, you know what, I'm going to make a mobile phone. This is something of huge companies, and even huge companies need lots of other companies. Our next speaker, Bas van Abel, as a designer, has always been promoting open design. Has written about it and has done several projects about it, brought a Fab Lab to Amsterdam, things like that. And then he thought, let's find out how you could design a fairer phone. Now, most people would make this a research project, but the team of the Fairphone actually thought, let's make a fairer phone, fairly produced. He's going to tell that story. The reason why I'm so happy that he's actually here to tell that story is that of the first run of 15,000 Fairphones, completely sold out, doing the second run now, they promoted it online and across the world. It was a Kickstarter campaign and so forth, and more than half were sold in Germany. So I'm just asking, is there anybody in the room with a Fairphone? Just say something, because it's very dark for me. Anyone? Ah, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Okay, please give a warm welcome to Bas van Abel, CEO of the Fairphone.
Oh, it's already there. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So, I'm a designer, and I make stuff. And I believe through making stuff, I can change systems. But if somebody would have come to me a few years ago and said, Bas, listen, in a couple of years from now, you'll be running a company that makes phones, I'd say, bullshit. You're delusional. But the thing is that I founded a company called Fairphone, and yes, well, you guessed it, we make phones. So how did I end up making phones? Oh, that's the wrong one. It started a couple of years ago as a campaign. We were thinking about a campaign around conflict minerals. Conflict minerals. If you look at this, well, it's big here, but it's a small, very small part of electronic devices. It's a capacitor. And a capacitor uses a mineral called coltan, tantalum. And tantalum is being mined, among other places, in eastern Congo. And in eastern Congo, in the last 10, 15 years, millions of people have died in conflicts related to the mining of that mineral. Minerals we use in our electronic devices, in our phones, which connects us with the whole world and relays us to everyone. But we don't know the story behind it. And it's also a sad story, but it's a difficult story. It's a very hard story to relay the mining of minerals all the way to that phone that you hold in your hand, that phone that is so precious to you. And on top of that, we had another problem to create awareness around these conflict minerals, that what is the exact problem? We didn't know what the exact problem is. Is it the militias in Congo? Is it the government in Rwanda? Is it the brands that don't take responsibility? Is it the shareholders of the big companies that drive for economic growth? So we didn't know that. And if you try to set up a campaign and you want to create action potential for someone, you need to have something to campaign for or to campaign against, whatever you want. So we were lost a bit. But luckily, we got some inspiration. I don't know if there are people here that know this object, but I think this is by far the most beautiful object ever made. And why? It's a toaster, for the people that haven't guessed that. It's an industrial product that looks like a handmade product, and it's very alienating. This is a product that actually shows you the story behind how it's made. And we're not used to that. Well, at least not from industrial products. And this toaster has been made by Thomas Thwaites. And Thomas Thwaites is someone who went into the shop, bought a toaster for £2 or £3, and he asked himself the question, how is it possible that I can make, that people can make toasters for £2 or £3? And he took that question very seriously, Because that's the question we don't ask ourselves. How is it made? Who makes it? Where is it made? Where does it end up if we don't use it anymore? So he went all the way to the beginning to find out how that whole system actually works, because he didn't understand. So he went to the mines. He got oil to make plastics. He got iron ore to make iron, and so on. And then he came up with this product. So for us, that was an inspiration, and made very clear to us what we had to do. We had to make a phone. And if Thomas Thwaites can make a toaster, well, we can make a phone. And obviously, at that point, I had never made a phone before and didn't know how to do it. But I knew one thing. Everything comes from the ground, or grows on the ground. So we knew we had to start with the mines. If you make a phone, you start with mining. So we went to Congo, to eastern Congo, to find out if there were mines where you could mine conflict-free. And we found mines. We found mines where we could get conflict-free minerals in Congo. But we also knew if you're going to make a product and you're going to walk through the whole production system, you need to have a market. So I went to KPN, and KPN is the biggest Dutch operator. And I told them, listen, guys, we have this fantastic idea. We're going to make a fair phone, step by step. We're going to improve that phone. We start with the minerals, and we're trying to find out how we can improve the system. And if you just buy 1,000 of them, you really help us, and you can be our launching partner. So the amazing thing happened. KPN actually bought or signed a contract of 1,000 phones which didn't exist from a company that didn't exist, for a price that they didn't know. So they said, well, we buy those 1,000 phones, but for a maximum price of 450 euros. Here's a piece of the contract we actually signed. So we had minerals. We had a contract. So what do you do if you want to make a phone? Well, you go to China. So we went to China. And we did the same thing as with KPN. We said, listen, guys, we have this fantastic idea. We're going to create a fair phone. And we're going to create shared value in your factory and democratic systems. And yeah, by the way, we don't have any money. But we will get that money once we start selling your phone. No problem. So it's kind of a tough negotiation you have with a Chinese factory. But the amazing thing happened. We actually found a factory that wanted to produce our phone, and not only wanted to produce our phone, but also believed in their way, in some way, in what we wanted to achieve. Strategically, they were not perfect, but they wanted to be transparent and wanted to go and wanted to try. So we were able to sell their phone before we even were going to produce the phone. And we didn't have enough money, like I said. So what we said is, well, so we have a producer, we have a contract, we have the minerals. So now let's find out if people actually are going to put their money where their mouth is. So we said, if we are going to sell the phone, and more than 5,000 people are going to buy it, we'll produce it, we'll do it. So we opened up a website, put a Buy Me button on it, so not Kickstarter, not anything, it was just a button on a website with a payment system behind it. And in 3 weeks' time, more than 10,000 people actually bought the Fairphone. And that's a huge statement, because again, that's people that bought a phone that didn't exist, by a company that never made a phone before, didn't know how to make a phone before. People didn't know it at that time, but they bought a phone, so they didn't buy a product. They didn't buy a phone. They said something by buying it. We had over 3.5 million euros on our bank account in a month, and people kept buying it. And that's the moment where I really panicked. I think that's the moment where I started crying at night in my sleep. Because the responsibility I had, as a designer, strategically naive, we go to Congo, we go to China, we do all these things. But then it became real. We had money from people, and we had a team who was really good at, from NGO world, social conditions, working conditions, labor rights. But we were making a phone, and we didn't have a team that was able to make a phone at that point. Nobody made a phone in our team. So actually, after a month, I pulled myself together. Well, my wife pulled myself together. And I was at a point that I really dared to put that money into that Chinese factory, because I went to China a lot, and we got the trust. And we put together a team that was capable of making that phone. So I'm really proud to be able to show you that we actually pulled it off. The first steps. It's a real phone. Thanks. It's a real phone. We've made 25,000 of them. It's nothing, but it's a great start. We have 50,000 people on a waiting list for the next phone. We're going to produce 35,000 phones in June. And it's a phone that has conflict-free minerals in it, from Congo. It's a phone that makes possible democratic elections in the factory you just saw, where workers can decide where the premiums we pay in a worker welfare fund is being spent on. It's a phone where all the spare parts are online. You can actually go online, buy all the spare parts, and make your own phone. I wouldn't recommend to do that, but it's possible. And we work together with iFixit to create manuals for people to self-repair their phones, so they use it longer. And we take back over 100,000 phones from Ghana, where phones would have ended up on a dump. And we're going to recycle them, get the minerals out of them, and use them for next productions. We try to be as transparent as possible, also with the pricing, not only with the assessment results and stuff we do in the blog and the storytelling, also where does your money go to. So we still have a very long way to go. I mean, I'd be the last one to say this phone is 100% fair. But we've started, and if you go back on why we started this, we started this to understand how it works. Why are the things the way they are? And if we understand, we can take action. We started a debate around what is fairness? What steps do you have to take to make the whole production, the whole value system more fair? And there's 25,000 people now that have that phone in their hand. And if you look back at the campaign, there's 25,000 people that are campaigning with that phone, that tell that story through their product, like the toaster. If you ask me what is the new normal, for me the new normal would be if producers, if designers, if makers, if NGOs, all of them really feel that they are part of a product ecosystem, because only then we can change the way products are made. Thank you very much.